Imagine coming home after a normal day, only to discover that someone had taken a saw to a tree your children had grown up climbing. Not because it was dangerous, not because it was dead, but because a homeowners association that you didn't even belong to decided they owned your property. They thought they could bully the wrong neighbor. What happened next turned the entrance to their perfect little community into something they desperately wanted everyone to stop looking at. If you've ever dealt with entitled neighbors, overreaching HOAs, or people who thought they were above the law, you're going to love this one. Before we jump in, hit that like button, subscribe for more incredible Reddit revenge stories, and if you've ever experienced something similar, tell us in the comments. We'd love to hear your story. Now let's get into today's revenge. People hear the letters HOA and immediately think of neat lawns, matching mailboxes, and overly enthusiastic neighbors measuring your grass with rulers. Most HOAs simply try to keep neighborhoods looking nice, but every once in a while, one forgets exactly where its authority ends, and that's exactly what happened to me. When my family bought our home, we absolutely loved the location. It sat on a corner lot. Technically, our front yard faced a completely different street than the subdivision behind us. The neighborhood behind our house had an HOA. We didn't. Legally, completely separate. That distinction would become very important. One side of our property bordered their carefully maintained streets. The other side belonged to our own quiet neighborhood, where nobody cared if your mailbox wasn't perfectly painted. Honestly, it was the best of both worlds, or so I thought. Right across the street from our side yard sat the HOA's swimming pool and playground. Every summer, my kids would watch other children splashing around while they rode bikes nearby. It looked fun, so I figured, why not ask? I contacted the HOA and explained our unique location. I know we're not technically part of your neighborhood, but would you let us pay HOA dues voluntarily so my kids can use the pool and playground? I wasn't asking for special treatment. I wasn't asking for free access. I literally offered to give them money. The answer came back almost immediately. No. No discussion. No compromise. No exceptions. Just, no, fine. Their pool. Their rules. I accepted it and moved on. A year later, I planted a beautiful mulberry tree on the corner of my property. Not only did it provide shade, it became part of our family's life. Every spring, the branches filled with sweet berries. The kids would race outside carrying bowls. Their fingers would turn purple from the juice. They'd laugh while trying to reach the highest branches. Years passed. The children grew up, moved away, started lives of their own. Yet every spring, they still came home. Not because they needed the fruit, because that tree had become a family tradition. It held memories, birthdays, picnics, summer afternoons, the kind of memories you don't realize you're making until years later. Then the HOA discovered my tree. At first, it was little things. A representative knocked on my door. "Your branches are hanging too low over the street." I stared at him. "Okay?" "They violate HOA landscaping standards." I almost laughed. "I'm sorry." "You know I don't live in your HOA, right?" He smiled politely. "It still affects the appearance of the neighborhood." I pointed across the street. "You see that swimming pool?" He nodded. "My kids aren't allowed in it." He looked confused. "You know why?" Silence. "Because you told us we're not part of your HOA." I folded my arms. "So unless my kids suddenly start swimming over there, you'll have to learn to live with my tree." He left looking annoyed. I figured that would be the end of it. It wasn't. Over the next several months, they kept showing up. Letters, warnings, friendly reminders. Every conversation ended exactly the same way. "You have no authority over my property." I even kept copies of county maps showing our property lines. The law couldn't have been clearer, yet somehow, they still acted like my yard belonged to them. It wasn't about branches anymore. It was about control. And people who crave control hate hearing the word no. Then, one afternoon, I pulled into my driveway. Something immediately looked wrong. The shape of the tree had changed. I slammed on the brakes, got out of the truck, walked toward it, and my stomach dropped. A massive branch, gone. Not broken, not storm damage, cut cleanly. Someone had taken a chainsaw and removed one of the largest limbs extending over the street. The wound was fresh, Bright wood exposed where healthy bark had been. The tree almost looked wounded, like someone had amputated a limb. I just stood there staring, my fists clenched, heart pounding. That branch had been one my kids climbed constantly. It was decades old, and now it was lying somewhere in pieces. I started asking questions. Neighbors shrugged. Nobody saw anything. Exactly as intended. The entrance to their carefully maintained neighborhood suddenly had what looked like the world's saddest Christmas display. In May, cars slowed down, people stared, children laughed, visitors asked questions. What happened to that tree? Oh, someone cut it. Every conversation reminded people exactly why it looked the way it did. The HOA had wanted prettier landscaping. Instead, they got the neighborhood's most talked about landmark. About a week later, knock, knock, knock. 2 HOA board members stood on my porch, trying their best to smile. One cleared his throat. "We were wondering if you'd consider taking down the lights." I blinked innocently. "Oh? It's becoming distracting." "I see. It affects the entrance to our neighborhood." I nodded thoughtfully. "Makes sense." "And?" He hesitated. "It's probably affecting property values." There it was, property values, their favorite phrase. I smiled. "Remember when you said my property wasn't part of your neighborhood?" Neither answered. "So, I guess my ugly tree isn't your business either." Silence. Then I added 4 words they'd apparently never expected to hear. "You can fuck off." Door closed. Conversation over. More letters arrived. Straight into the trash, warnings, requests, strongly worded notices, worthless. Because every single one shared the same fatal flaw. They had absolutely no authority over me. The light stayed, week after week, month after month. Spring became summer. Summer became fall. The tree continued glowing every single night. Neighbors probably hated it. Visitors definitely noticed it. The HOA couldn't do a thing. Ironically, the one thing they feared most had finally happened. The entrance to their neighborhood looked ridiculous, because they'd decided someone else's property belonged to them. Eventually, just before Christmas, I finally took the lights down. Not because they won, because I'd made my point. For months, they had been forced to stare at the physical reminder of what they'd done every single day. Every resident entering that subdivision saw it. Every guest asked about it. Every explanation made the HOA look worse. And strangely enough, nobody ever touched my tree again. No surprise inspections, no complaints, no mysterious trimming crews, nothing. It's almost like they realize that every action has consequences, especially when you pick a fight with someone who has nothing left to lose. Years have passed, that mulberry tree is still standing, the scar remains visible, the fake branch is long gone, but every spring, my now grown children still come over with bowls in hand. We pick berries, laugh about old memories, and inevitably, someone brings up the Christmas tree. In May, we all laugh, because what started as an act of petty revenge became another family story, one we'll probably tell forever. Sometimes revenge isn't about destroying someone. Sometimes it's about holding up a mirror and forcing them to look at what they've done. The HOA wanted control over property that wasn't theirs. Instead, they spent months explaining why the ugliest decorated tree in town stood proudly at the entrance to their neighborhood. Turns out, respecting boundaries is a lot cheaper than trying to cross them. If you enjoyed this revenge story, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more unbelievable Reddit revenge tales every week. And tell us in the comments, what would you have done if someone cut down your tree without permission? We read every comment, and your story might even inspire our next video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.